Hi, everyone, and welcome to the third session of the Sydney Global webinar series. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation and the traditional custodians of the land from which I'm joining today, and pay my respects to the elders past and present. I extend that respect to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people on the call and acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands from which you're all dialing in. For those joining us for the first time, my name is Antonia and I manage the Sydney Global Program here at the committee. This is a strategic initiative led by the Committee for Sydney to strengthen how Sydney is positioned and understood globally. It responds to a long-standing challenge for our city, that whilst we are one of the world's most recognisable cities, our international reputation is disproportionately shaped by tourism and lifestyle narratives, while our strengths in areas such as business, innovation, culture, and education are less well understood. This brand gap has resulted in Sydney fundamentally outperforming global perceptions, limiting our ability to convert our true offering as a global city into opportunities to attract talent, investment, and ideas. That's why Sydney Global is developing a more cohesive and compelling story about Sydney, one that better reflects our full value proposition and helps us put our best foot forward in an increasingly competitive global marketplace. Through this webinar series, we're hearing directly from leaders in cities around the world about how they build, manage, and communicate their competitive value propositions. So far, we've had the pleasure of hearing perspectives from Amsterdam and London. And today we're delighted to be joined by Staffan Ingvarsson to share his insights on Stockholm's approach to city positioning. Before formally introducing Staffan, I'd like to acknowledge and thank our Sydney Global program partners whose support makes conversations like this possible. Those partners are Airbnb, Business Events Sydney, the City of Sydney, the Department of Creative Industries, Tourism, Hospitality and Sport, the Outer Western Sydney Alliance, and Deloitte. I'd also like to thank our other Committee for Sydney partners. You can see them on the screen now. So, for those who don't know Staffan, he leads Stockholm Business Region, the Swedish capital's official business and destination development organisation. Staffan has spent more than 20 years working on Stockholm's development. He has previously served as Deputy City Director of Stockholm and CEO of the city's digital infrastructure company, StockUp. He also chaired Investment Stockholm, Visit Stockholm, and a startup accelerator called Sting. Stockholm is an increasingly, I'm just going to not share my screen, there we go. Stockholm is an especially interesting city for us to learn from. Like Sydney, it has a powerful livability proposition, but also a much broader economic story to tell. As a centre for innovation, entrepreneurship, and global business. As you listen along this afternoon, I encourage you to put any questions you may have in the chat, as we'll be pulling from your questions to close out the session. And with that, without further ado, I'll pass the virtual mic over to you, Staffan. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And it's a true honor to join you here in your afternoon, talking a little bit about Stockholm and then hopefully having a fruitful discussion about how we, as world leading cities together, can develop the tasks that we have in front of us. I'll give a short introduction to Stockholm, where we are, and the journey that we have been on for the last 5-10 years, creating our brand and strengthening our global position. And it's truly a journey from a more fragmented effort to a unified global narrative that we are on. I wouldn't say that we're finished, but we are on a clear track in reaching that position. Looking at Stockholm, historically, Stockholm has been known maybe globally for the Nobel Prize, for its industrial power, for innovation. But we are, of course, as Sydney, a more diverse city than that has strengths in different areas. We are the most innovative country in the European Union. We are a place that is growing rather rapidly, both in the city and in the surrounding cities and suburban areas. We are a city that is growing when it comes to visitors and tourists. We are passing 16 million commercial guest nights this year, and will continue to grow. But we don't just list rankings. We try to show how innovation, attractiveness, and investments needs are part of the same urban development. For an investor, Stockholm's innovation system is the proposition. For talent, it's the combination of professional opportunity and quality of life. For visitors, it's the proximity between urban culture and extraordinary nature. The proof points may differ, but the city behind is the same. So maybe an investor, international specialists, and the visitors may come to Stockholm for different reasons, but today they are increasingly evaluating the same underlying qualities: opportunities, openness, quality of life, connectivity, trust, and the city's ability to manage change. This is why we no longer see investment attraction or talent attraction or destination promotion as three separate activities. They are different expressions of the same question: why Stockholm? A shared narrative is not about saying the same thing to everyone. It's about starting from the same truth, the core of the Stockholm story. Our new international platform, 30,014 Islands of Possibility, is built on those insights: innovation and entrepreneurship, quality of life, well-being, the proximity between city and nature, trust, openness, and stable institutions, the ability to turn ideas into practical societal development. The 30,014 islands symbolize Stockholm's unique blend of urban environments, nature, technology, sustainability, and human scale, all coexisting closely. This platform was designed to resonate with international media, investors, entrepreneurs, skilled talents, not just visitors. The lines, as I've been saying, between visitors, businesses, and talents have blurred. A visitor may become a student, entrepreneur, or an investor. An international specialist evaluates not just the job, but housing, schools, culture, nature, and social openness. A company assesses not only costs and locations, but access to talent and the ability to attract and retain people. A major event can simultaneously generate tourism revenues, strengthen a business cluster, and boost global visibility. This evolution explains why Visit Stockholm and Invest Stockholm merged in 2024 to form Stockholm Business Region, a unified force to develop and market Stockholm as a destination for business, investments, talents, and visitors. Stockholm Business Region has a very clear structure when it comes to leadership and governance behind the model. It's a shared narrative that isn't created by a communications department. It requires organizational decisions, prioritization, and endurance. Stockholm Business Region is fully owned by the city of Stockholm, but works when it comes to attraction for investors and talents for a much broader part of Sweden, almost covering 1/3 of the citizens in Sweden. The city council every year in the budget has a clear ownership directive to provide a long-term democratic direction, and we execute as Stockholm Business Region on those directions. Stockholm's ability to align efforts across the city organization is strengthened by a work that we started almost 20 years ago, putting up a long-term vision for the city of Stockholm, then called Vision 2030. The point of that long-term vision is trying to focus from the city council's perspective on what kind of city do we want to be. And then it's our responsibility from Stockholm Business Region also to take that vision, take that goals into a communication platform and into an effort to try to convince the world of where we are going. Helping us with that, we also have, of course, a comprehensive plan for the city of Stockholm. And these documents, together with other shared governance and strategy frameworks, provide a common direction for the entire city organization. A direction to become a city for the people who live here, a city as a capital of Sweden, but also as a world city for the world to take part in. We work with investments attraction, talent development, and destination promotion, all guided by the same long-term goals. So this means that we also foster and direct a collaboration between departments, businesses, and academia within the city, coordinated to maximize our impact. At the core of our urban development are sustainability, innovation, and competitiveness. This is something that is shared within the city, but also with the stakeholders from the private sector or from the academia within the city. And this alignment creates a unified force where the city's entire organization can work together to drive a meaningful change. Our takeaways during this journey for a couple of years and continuing it forward is that an organization that reflects how the world sees the city. International businesses and talent rarely care about municipality boundaries. Our organization must meet a cohesive demand, even when delivery requires multiple public and private actors. The city doesn't own the story alone. We, as Stockholm Business Region, concept directions and create platforms, but Stockholm's actual brand is shaped daily by businesses, universities, cultural institutions, property owners, restaurants, residents, and visitors. Our role is not to control Stockholm's brand. Our role is to orchestrate, connect, and amplify the reality of the city. Collaboration must deliver tangible benefits. We work with businesses, academia, municipalities, authorities, institutions. The regional perspective is key because labor markets, investments, infrastructure, and visitor flows do not stop at municipal borders. Leadership must protect long-term vision. A place brand loses value if the core narrative changes with every campaign or every new political leader. Yet expressions and priorities must evolve as the world changes. Consistency does not mean standing still. It means evolving from a recognizable strategy. Let me give you a few concrete examples where we see that the perspective meets. Major events are more than tourism. Stockholm uses events, major events. We had last year the International Ice Hockey Championship, for example, here in Stockholm. We use them as a tool for hosting, for urban development, for international visibility, and for business benefits. Attracting DreamHack back in 2025 generated over 100 million Swedish crowns in tourist economic turnover, while strengthening Stockholm's profile in gaming and tech. But more importantly, it put Stockholm on the map as a global gaming and tech destination. Investors took notice, and for the talent who so desperately need, it sent a clear signal. This is where future is being built. So a major event is, when we look at it, not only a tourism product, it can also demonstrate a business ecosystem, attract talent, and give global audience a reason to engage with the city. Hagastaden, which is a new city district, innovation district being built in Stockholm, is another example. It serves as a prime example of how Stockholm integrates housing, workplaces, research, leading universities, and sustainable solutions into a single urban environment. When finished, there will be probably 20,000 people living there and maybe 50,000 people working. The project demonstrates how shared urban development can enhance the city's appeal for investors, talent, and visitors alike. True collaboration between municipality, businesses, and academia, an environment is created that attracts innovation, living, and tourism, while also meeting very high sustainability goals. Hagastaden also highlights how a shared narrative can be translated into tangible benefits. For investors, an innovative and growing urban environment with access to talent and infrastructure. For talent, a vibrant and sustainable city with close connection to workplaces and nature. For visitors, an attractive destination with unique experience and meetings. The third example I would like to highlight is how we work with the archipelago, 30,014 islands. The Stockholm archipelago showcases how a destination value can also drive film production, creative industries, regional development, and sustainable nature tourism. Public-private collaboration has attracted international film production to Stockholm and the archipelago. The lessons that we have learned during our journey is a few, and of course there are probably more lessons to be learned ahead. A city narrative must be rooted, as I stated before, in real enduring strengths. clear vision and a clear strategy. Otherwise, a gap quickly emerges between marketing and people's actual experience. A city narrative cannot compensate for a weak city offer. It can only make a stronger and credible offer easier to understand. The second lesson that we have learned is that the integration doesn't mean losing specialization. Investment promotion, talent attraction, and destination marketing require different expertise, different networks, different methods. The value arises when they work from the same strategic direction, not when everyone does the same thing. The third lesson is that organizational change is the easy part. Redrawing an organizational chart is relatively simple. The real challenge is aligning goals, budgets, data, priorities, and ways of working. The real integration begins after the organizational chart has been approved. Fourth lesson, shared positions require shared priorities. Not everything can be prioritized equally. A global city must choose which strengths and development areas most clearly carries international competitiveness. That means that we have to build trust with our different stakeholders so they understand why we try to promote various parts of the opportunities in Stockholm. Lesson 5, result must be measured more broadly. Traditional metrics like reach, guest nights, leads, or establishments are still needed, of course, but they don't always capture the interplay between efforts. Over time, Stockholm must get much better at tracking how international awareness, investments, talents, events, and quality of life reinforce each other. We are not finished on this. This is something that we are working on, and I think will be a good challenge for the future, also to try to work out the metrics together with Sydney and other world-leading cities. Lesson 6, residents cannot be reduced to the background. An attractive city must work for those who already live there. It's their hometown. Global success that leads to housing shortages, congestion, or exclusion risks undermining long-term legitimacy. A global attractive city must also remain a city in which residents can build a good life. Looking a little bit ahead for the future, I think that there are a few opportunities and challenges for global cities going up to maybe 2035 or 2030. We need to move from place marketing to place capability. The next decade will be less about who tells the best story and more about who can deliver on it. Talent as a fundamental infrastructure. Skill supplies will influence both businesses and investments and cities' ability to execute the green and digital transition. Housing, schools, integration, international accessibility, and social openness will thus become economic policy issues, not just welfare or planning concerns. Trust as a competitive advantage. In a fragmented geopolitical world, institutional stability, transparency, and predictability will matter more to investors and international talent. Stockholm Business Region has begun describing trust and long-term stability as operational competitive factors, not just abstract societal values. AI, of course, and climate transition will reshape city regions. Cities will need to attract new investments while helping existing businesses and labor markets through the transition. The OECD emphasized that regional attractiveness increasingly needs to link strategic investments, green transition, skill supplies, and a balanced visitor economy. Physical capacity may become more important than communication. Housing, energy supply, transport capacity, international connections, and access to land can become more decisive constraints than before. Cities cannot market their way out of structural capacity problems. Global attractiveness must become more inclusive. Successful cities will need to show that the international growth also creates value for residents, local businesses, and all parts of the city. Otherwise, investors and visitors' promotion risk losing political and social legitimacy. For us, it starts also with a very credible long-term vision. Our experience is that investment attraction, talent attraction, and destination promotion become more powerful when they are connected, but only if that connection is based on the real city. The global competitive cities of the next decade will not necessarily be the loudest. They will be the cities that make it credible and attractive for people to visit, belong, invest, and build for the long term. Our ambition is not simply to market Stockholm more efficiently, it's to help Stockholm develop in a way that gives us something meaningful, distinctive, and credible to communicate, to build a city for citizens living here, for the citizens of Sweden to be proud of their capital, and from citizens from all over the world to be happy to visit, to live in, to work in, or invest in. I'll end with a short movie. I hope this will work to see how we try to use a common story to promote our different groups. They say no city is an island. Well, what if we say Stockholm is 30,014 islands? An archipelago of possibilities. A place where you'll find world-class universities and one of the most unicorn-dense startup ecosystems. It's a place where founders and entrepreneurs scale fast and where innovations advance health as well as business. And Stockholm-made games are played by billions of users worldwide. Where the Nobel Prize reminds the world each year of what brilliance looks like. Talents in every field go from locally known to internationally famous. Music travels far beyond our latitude, festivals and major events, not to mention bold flavors ranging from Michelin-level dining to great street food. Where nature is not separate from the city, but woven into it, where the air is fresh and the clean water is close enough for a lunchtime swim. The city is built on 14 islands and continues with the archipelago, and its landscape of 30,000 islands offers both silence and adventure side by side. Green urban living is not only a slogan here, but how the city is designed from cleaner energy to renewable powered public transport. In Stockholm, freedom to roam is not a metaphor. It is protected by law. And trust is part of everyday life. Here, everyone is welcome. Diversity is a strength. And respect is not earned by fitting in, but by showing up as you are. Here, you are free to speak, free to create, free to belong. The place to be you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share a little bit about where we are, what we think are our core values and our strengths, and hopefully share some lessons and share some challenges for the coming years. Thank you very much.
Well, thanks so much, Staffan. Hi, everyone. Eamon here from the Committee for Sydney. Thanks. That was wonderful. I really appreciate that. I think, unfortunately, Zoom cut out some of the background music, but we heard all of the content in the video. And we can share a link around so people can enjoy the beautiful music that goes along behind it. Hey, everybody, I've got 1,000 questions. Well, maybe 30,014 questions. But if you have questions, you can plop them into the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen in the Zoom, and I will get to your questions as we go along. We've got opportunity for a good conversation. So thank you so much for that, Staffan. I might start with what might seem like an obvious question, but my reflection on Stockholm is that its brand has always been really positive. There's actually very little negative things to say about Stockholm. And so why do you need a brand at all? What's the point of the work that you do for a city that everyone's like, oh yeah, Stockholm's nice, I got no problem with that place?
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think that in some aspect in your question, you also answered why we are doing that. Because, of course, we have the benefit of having a fairly positive resonance globally, but we are also a city that are not that known. You might have heard of Stockholm. Yeah, it's the capital of Sweden. It's up there in the north. Seems nice. But what are the core values? Why should we dive a little bit deeper into Stockholm? So we have been saying for a couple of years that we are a very well kept secret. So we need to be clearer on what we can deliver and be actually louder globally, regionally in Europe, but also globally to be able to attract the visitors or the talents or the investors that we're working.
And so you mentioned that it's not the responsibility of government to own the brand of Stockholm. The role you play is coordinating, and that collaborating with the private sector and with communities is important. What does that look like in practice? Given you're a government-owned organisation, how does the private sector get involved in your work?
In various ways, we have had for a long time very strong ties and networks to the visiting economy, to of course the hotels and the travel trade destinations, but also to the real estate owners and developers. So we work very closely to them. Dialogue that is almost every week in some form and more organized a couple of times a year, where we would discuss together how can we develop and continue to develop Stockholm. And I love going into a room where you have the big property owners, property developers, you have the maybe niche players in the destination economy, you have public officials, and try to, and it's an ongoing discussion. What is Stockholm? It's not about what is Stockholm's brand, but it's what is Stockholm? What do we want it to be? Because I'm convinced that it has to start with the core values, and then we can, via our channels, produce movies and of course advert campaigns globally, but also give support to the hotels or the property developer or the large companies that we have in the region, so they can talk about Stockholm out of this shared value base, really.
So that when you say give support to them, can you give some specific examples of what sort of support you provide?
It could be a communication deck. For example, we had Bad Bunny here a couple of weeks ago, and then we produced a rather simple communication deck about what is Stockholm, how can we work towards the audience that we knew were coming from Latin America and from Spain and Portugal that are not that often in Stockholm, so that the feel of the city should be the same when you land at the airport, when you're visiting, staying at a hotel, when you're moving around downtown, as one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is, of course, to produce a lot of facts and figures to share with the HR&R departments of the larger companies, so they can, when they talk to international talents or the universities talk to international students, they can also share what is Stockholm. So it varies a bit, but I think the methods is the same. We have the trust from all the hotels in Stockholm. They share their data with us, and then we can package that and share it back to them in a way that so you can't really see which hotel that shared the data. So we build the knowledge in the community, in the business community, about what Stockholm is and how it's developing.
So it's a little bit that you're sort of a trusted independent organization that everybody has confidence that when they use your messaging, your statistics, that they're correct, but also that everybody else is using the same story. That there's that coordination that comes from the trust you've built. Interesting. Going back a little bit in your story, you originally had Invest Stockholm and Visit Stockholm, and you made that decision to overlap them. How has that process of merging those kind of, I guess, audience or those attraction agencies together gone? Did you find unexpected challenges in the way that they operated, or opportunities that you hadn't expected to find through that process of merging?
Yes, well, I came on board as CEO for 7.5 years ago and saw rather fast that we needed to do something about how we worked in our communication and our place branding activities. And then we had the different companies. And then we started the journey when it comes to how we can align communication, because we saw that our target groups were looking at about the same things, searching for the same qualities. So we did a journey over a couple of years where we aligned communications from the different marketing organizations. And then the pandemic hit. So everything went digital. And I think that both hindered our organizational change because it's hard to do that when you're totally digital. You need to talk to people in another way. But it also helped because it stressed the point of how we communicated very, very clearly. So coming out of the pandemic, we decided to do this change. We did it 2024. And I would say it has released a lot of economic and communicative power for us. We are more agile and stronger today. It's more easy for us to take maybe a stronger voice globally when we can talk about the whole destination, the whole city. Of course, organizational change is tough. It's people that are affected on this. What you recognize after a couple of months or years is that there are pockets of cultural resistance. You're used to doing something one way, and of course, you have to be rethought how you should do that. And that's something that's on the individual level, but it's also for the organization. So it takes time. I think that give it a couple of more years, it would be rather self-supportive. But now we, from the management team, has to work on this all the time to make sure that we are moving in the right direction, not falling back into old behaviors. So it's a long journey. But so far, I think it's been a good journey. I see that the coworkers understand why. We have a clear mission on what our tasks are. Then, of course, you have in the ecosystem, you have brands that are strong and that people refer to. Of course, that you have companies that can refer to Invest Stockholm. You have other companies that refer to Visit Stockholm. So it takes time also in more of a corporate communication perspective to clarify the role that we have. But it's moving along fairly well, I would say.
I mean, I feel like that's probably that journey is never finished, right? That the work of reinforcing the value of collaboration is always a never-ending process of reminding people. You mentioned in your deck, your presentation, that the important role of tangible benefits from collaboration. Can you talk to me a little bit about what that looks like? How are you showing tangible benefits to some of these organizations that maybe are skeptical about the idea, when they've always done it a certain way and it's working, why they should change the story they're telling?
I'll give you an example. We have, since 20 years ago, we have a collaboration with 54 other municipalities around the city of Stockholm. This has been very focused on promoting investment attraction, but also on learning from each other when it comes to how do we work locally with the local business communities to make their possibilities grow even greater. And of course, when we changed our organization and how we work, that was a lot of questions about that. Why are you doing this? What does this mean for us? So we had to be very clear on the specific goals for them, for these 53 municipalities. What are the gains for them? I spent, I don't know how many hours on local trains and in my car going around talking to people, talking to the mayors of the different cities, talking to the different city officials, explaining where is our journey, why is it necessary for us to, when it comes to marketing, not just talk about investment opportunities, but talk about the city and the region as a whole. So it took a lot of man hours. I think I used up a couple of shoes for that experience, but I think that's the key: building trust, explaining why, and getting people and organizations on board. That takes time, and then you have to have a very, very clear knowledge. You have to have the data. You have to be able to show why this is the right way to go, why we can make more money available for the activities that they are looking into by doing this journey.
I thought we had it bad with 33 local governments, but 54 does sound like a lot to work on. But yes, I can certainly resonate. There is a challenge of all of these things that you're talking about, they are very similar to Sydney. We're a little bit further behind on the journey, but the same thing. Everybody likes Sydney. There's no negative sort of attributes associated with Sydney. It's just not in consideration for many potential investors or international students or people who think it's too far away. It's all the way down there. And so that, there's a lot about Stockholm that I see as a mirror image in Sydney. One other thing I wanted to dig into, you used the example of Hagastaden as a sort of a precinct. And, this is something we're grappling with of how do you use precincts within your city as kind of examples, case studies of the story of your city in a way that is often difficult when a precinct is there to do a more specific thing. Maybe it's a high-tech innovation district or it's a great lifestyle district, and your city is more than just those things. How have you found the role of places like Hagastaden as I guess, case studies to tell the Stockholm story? Why do that?
Well, we use the different city districts, or for that example, districts in other municipalities around
Right.
Stockholm, as examples on the broaden offer that Stockholm can give. So we in our communication we lift various districts and various parts of our region various times to showcase the width really of what Stockholm is and can be. When it comes to Hagastaden, especially that city district is being built right now. About half is ready. This summer, Ericsson decided to move their global headquarters from another part of the city into that part, which is for me a testament that we are onto something. But it's also a city district that's been built between Karolinska Institute, which is our leading life science university, the Royal Institute of Technology, which is our leading technical university, and the Stockholm University. So it's in that triangle. It has one of the world's most advanced hospitals right in it. So when we decided to build it actually over a highway about 20 years ago, we said that no, we want this area to be a life science cluster that you can live in, that you have all the opportunities. So that was something that the mayor of Stockholm then, the county governor, the principals of the different universities, everybody got on board on this. This is what we should do. And my organization, although I was not CEO of Stockholm Business Region right then, was the organization that held that process together. And we have tried to live that over time, coming back to why are we building this? What does that mean? So it's been a conversation really between very powerful stakeholders over 20 years. And we have to remind ourselves every time. So we have a board monitoring the development, and that's always a topic. How can we make sure that the long-term vision that we said that we agreed on, although none of the people that were in the room back then are in the room now, will be strengthened going forward. So it's truly a way of having that continuous dialogue with different stakeholders that are rewarded for very different things. It might be citations from the university. It's, of course, money from the property developer's perspective. And from the city's perspective, it's, well, the politicians will be elected every 4th year. But having that dialogue is really, I think, what has made it possible to build a new innovation district very, very close to the city center, competing in some aspects also with the city center dynamics, but then making it visible also for the companies and the property owners in the city center to see that this will add value to the city of Stockholm.
A similar thing in Sydney, we have a number of innovation districts that are outside the city centre, some quite close, some quite a long way away. And often people say, why are we bothering? All of the economic activity is already in the CBD. But it's about telling the story of the specialisation that reflects one of the expertises of Sydney, but not the only thing we're great at. But that area is a specialty in that area. I have another question. I have a couple of Q&A questions as well, but one I had for you, how do you measure the success of your organization? Like when you have to go to the Treasury Department or to the mayor and to the people that pay you to convince them to keep paying you, what does success look like and how do you draw, one of the challenges we often have, sorry, this is a very long question, but the outcomes and the outputs are often quite a long way away from each other. We run this marketing campaign and more people stay in hotels in Sydney, let's say, for argument's sake. How can we prove that that output led to that outcome? It's hard to know. How do you measure that? Any tips, any advice?
I think we have the same problem in that because, of course, of course, you have hard metrics looking at number of visitors, number of flights, trains. You have investors, you have the talents, and so on and so forth. Of course, you have that. But what in my work has really made that possible? And I think you have to measure the hard KPIs, of course, and over time you can see if you have 5, 10, 20 years of KPIs, you can see where we have done things and how that has affected also our opportunity. Of course, when it comes to other parts that we are responsible for coordinating, for example, major events, you can work more easy with the metrics in that. We also measure how we do things, the more soft metrics that we have this number of dialogues each year. So it's one way of doing it. But I think it comes down to trust. I think it comes down to keep having the common understanding in the stakeholders, not just the city who actually funds Stockholm Business Region, but also the different stakeholders to see that this adds value, a value that you might not be able to put a number on in a direct sense, but it adds value. So we become the national organization for this city long-term development and collaboration. So I think you have to work with hard metrics and soft metrics, but it all comes down to trust, and not just trust from the ones who's paying, but from the community in itself.
Mm. Um, how do you really good question coming through on the Q&A. How do you make sure that Sydney, your messaging is genuinely distinctive to Stockholm and not just sort of broad themes that any city can use? Sydney is quite multicultural as well. I saw that as one of your thematics. How do you make sure, you don't get so appealing? You try and appeal to the broadest audience possible, and in doing so, you become meaningless.
That's a very, very good question, and I have that dialogue a lot with my Nordic capitals as well. Looking at Oslo, looking at Copenhagen, looking at Stockholm, it's about the same weather, it's about the same culture. So of course you have that. What we've done is with also our platform 30,014 islands. That is something from a nature perspective that is unique. There is no other place in the world, so we can work on that. We have a tech and finance climate in Stockholm that is unique. We are the most fluent financial, most liquid financial market in Europe, I would say, at least in the EU today. Not counting London in that aspect, maybe. But so we have some.
Bye, London.
Yeah, no, yeah. They are of course a part of Europe, but they're not part of the European Union. Now, so I think we have some things going for us that can make us more specific. Of course, we also use the brand names of large Swedish and Stockholm companies that we can promote to make us a little bit more. But that is a problem. We are competing Stockholm, Oslo, Copenhagen, Helsinki, Amsterdam, for that sense, Sydney as well, and the same value base. But I think that's, and then of course you have to try to find what are your specifics in that. But it all comes down to why do I want to visit, or why do I want to move to study or work in Stockholm? It comes down to the people living here, the companies that are here. They are the ones that really over time will tell the story. So if I can if I can base my communication on that core, we might not have that really loud voice and take that really strong position directly, but over time we will also deliver on our propositions.
Um, the other element of that, we've done a couple of these conversations, and one thing that London and Partners said to us that I thought was very interesting is they have a very good understanding of who their audience is and is not. So in their instance, they talk about there are certain countries that are markets for them, but there is also very clear kind of demographics. So they're interested in 20 to 30-year-olds. They're interested in people with bachelor's, like sort of undergraduate degrees. How do you guys, do you have an audience sort of segmentation that you focus on as being Stockholm's audience? And also, what is the process you went through to kind of identify those key audiences?
Yes, we do. And of course, we look at various countries that are most most relevant for us. We look at demographics in some aspects. We look also at what kind of occupation do you have? What kind of people are probably interested in the combination of a very high-tech environment and a very closeness to a unique nature. So yes, we target some groups out of that perspective. We are targeting young people, as everybody is doing, of course, but
Well,
also some.
We're not.
You're not. Oh, okay.
We should be. We should be.
We're doing it out of both a visiting perspective, but also, of course, out of a talent perspective. So it's very interesting for us, for early adults, people that have one degree, maybe looking for what's the next opportunity. We know from the tech industry in Stockholm that we need to have a lot more people that has maybe a bachelor or master's degrees in engineering. So we try to focus on those kind of groups, not specifically targeting them, but targeting environments that we know they are. So we've been working quite a lot in marketing ourselves towards the Nordic countries, the UK, the east coast of the US, some parts of Canada, and so on, to try to focus on those groups. We want to have visitors that wants to really feel and live as a Stockholmer, more than coming here, taking a few Instagram shots and go.
Sure.
So we are a bit picky.
I like that.
But I think that's also good for, as I was talking about before, creating a long-term value proposition also for the Stockholmers. They are the greatest asset that we have. Today, about 80% of the Stockholmers love that we have visitors in Stockholm and want to see more. That is a very high number, and a very high number that I'm very keen on keeping over time, because I think if that goes down, totally. If I go to a situation more like in Europe, Amsterdam or Venice, as Barcelona, that would be a problem for me, because then I will not be able to also use the visitors coming here for talent attraction and for investors. So
yeah, totally. Important to use that opportunity when you have the social license. Staffan, I didn't actually, I should have mentioned this earlier. I actually lived in Oslo for a year when I was younger, and spent a lot of time in Stockholm, and it's a beautiful city. I love it. Very, very wonderful place to spend time. But I'm interested, I love the sort of the tagline, capital of Scandinavia. And we sometimes jokingly talk about, Sydney, the capital of the Southern Hemisphere, which is maybe a larger, more ambit claim. But I'm just curious, did you get any pushback from Oslo or Helsinki or indeed Copenhagen, when you proposed this idea?
Of course we did. This was about 20 years ago when we decided, out of very hard metrics, looking at where are the financial flows, where are the companies, where are the cultural institutions, and so on, and then also the fact that we are a larger city when it comes to inhabitants, larger region in the Nordics or in Scandinavia. So we took that rather bold decision 20 years ago to do to be a little bit more bold, to speak a little bit more louder, to brand ourselves as the capital of Scandinavia. Of course, there was a reaction from a lot of people, but at the same time, I think it has worked. We've been there for 20 years now, and when we have dialogues, deep dialogues about it, when with the different stakeholders, both private and public in Stockholm, they can see that, oh, we are Swedes. It's like, oh, this is a little bit oh, you don't feel that is well about this. Can we really say this? And then you explain why and how, and then okay, yeah. And they are a little bit strict. And there was I had a dialogue with a rather large audience at the Stockholm Chamber of Commerce about 1.5 years ago or something like that, and it was a question, oh, should we really, and so on. And I said that, well, if we don't talk about it, I'm sure that the Danes will do it the next day. And there was a Dane in the public, and he said, yes! So it's a friendly competition. Scandinavia is not a country, it's a region in the northern part of Europe. And we have taken that position. And I think that today, the different stakeholders feel more proud about it. And when I go to Oslo or Copenhagen, we can joke about it. And it becomes also a friendly competition. I was in Oslo 2 weeks ago, and the theme of my talk was how can Oslo become the capital of Scandinavia? So it's a friendly jargon today, I would say.
I mean, I think the benefit of it as well is that Scandinavia has a bunch of really positive attributes to it as well. You know, you're not just claiming ownership over a geographical area. You're claiming kind of, you know, leadership in a set of values, a set of sort of, you know, an openness, you know, a social welfare kind of approach to kindness and thoughtfulness and you know, so I think, I mean, it's such a wonderful brand, and like clearly Stockholm is the capital of Scandinavia.
Of course.
You know, Oslo is lovely, but it's like 400,000 people. Like it's, you know, it's a beautiful large town. As a former resident, Staffan, you've been really wonderful with your time. Thank you so much for joining us on what is early morning for you, I think. So I really appreciate you making the time for us. Thank you for joining. To everybody who joined online and to ask questions, thank you so much for joining as well. This will be a recording, so we'll be able to share it with your colleagues, and please share it far and wide. But for now, have a great evening. Have a great day. Staffan, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Best of luck.
See you all, team.